Hey, welcome to the MMA podcast In The Clinch on the Fight Game Media Network Patreon group. I'm Paul Fontaine. Alongside me is Ryan Frederick, and with us is our special guest, AEW's own John Silver. John, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
We're doing good. Ryan, you're fully vaccinated now, right?
Yeah. It's kind of a relief on the shoulders. Finally getting back to UFC shows. Was hoping to get to Jacksonville this week, but plans not really there right now. But Houston, Las Vegas, all those shows coming up.
Yeah, John, Ryan will be covering the Houston show live and in person in a full arena. So we got that to look forward to. Yeah. And you've been performing in front of fans for pretty much longer than just about anybody. And it's gonna be kind of cool for those UFC fighters to finally hear the roar of the crowd.
Yeah, it's good to feel some kind of crowd there, but it's still, we're used, like before this, we're used to the AEW crowds, not even just wrestling crowds. AEW crowds were different than any other wrestling crowd. So it's obviously a huge step back from that, but from where we were at first, we were just in front of no crowd.
Yeah, like just the wrestlers,
and then just the wrestlers. And then now, then when it went to at least some kind of crowd there, it was a difference. But once we get even more people in, even more of a difference. It's just, we feed off the crowd, so it's difficult when you don't have that there.
Yeah. You have any kind of hints or feelings about when that might happen?
Nothing that I was told personally, but there's a full, like you said, there's a full UFC card running in next door to where we run. So I feel like that could only be a good thing unless it becomes a spread, or I don't even. But I'm hoping that it just goes well, and
you going to the show in Jacksonville, the UFC, or no?
I'm actually not even going to be at the tapings this week.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah, you're rehabbing, eh?
Just trying to keep my shoulder good and on it. Doing my thing. But
how's that going? How's the rehab going?
It's just like a slow process. It's every day it's a little bit better, but I just want it to be. I don't know. I'm impatient, so it's like I'm trying hard to just do everything I possibly could to get it better, and then it's like you take a step forward, but then you think like, well, I still can't do this. I still can't. I don't know. Mentally, it's a little draining, but I'm just it's not as bad as it obviously could have been.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we see you back soon. So, you got anything, Ryan, before we get into UFC?
No, I've got some questions for later, but we'll save them. So,
Okay, cool. So this past week we had UFC on ESPN Plus from the Apex. So this would be the last show for now from the Apex before they're back in front of fans. And we talked to John off air. You watched a bit of it, you said. Ryan covers the show for Wrestling Observer. Not sure if you're aware of that, but he does the MMA section in the Wrestling Observer newsletter for Dave Meltzer because he's too busy to cover MMA anymore. And then I cover it. Just I watched it. So what did you? I assume you saw the main event, John, and anything else?
Yeah, I watched. I would do my DraftKings on the show, so I had DraftKings going. I didn't win any money, but yeah, I knew. I picked Whitaker, obviously. He's just so good, Whitaker. He's next level good. I know he obviously deserves the rematch with Adesanya. Personally, I think he just picked I wouldn't say really bad, but he just didn't have a good strategy in his first fight with Adesanya. He saw what Gaslam did, and he tried to just recreate that, and that's just what he should have done. I think. So I think he has a good chance against Adesanya, but I'm looking forward to that fight. He definitely earned it. I know Vittori really has been like saying no, I'm the number one contender up, but no, Whitaker obviously is beating better people. But Vittori is probably next in line after that.
So Ryan, do you think they go to a stadium in Australia as soon as they're able to?
I mean, it's kind of hard to predict whether they're going to do that because I mean the idea is maybe September, October, and UFC's probably just planning on doing what they can in the US because I mean obviously Australia, New Zealand would be the place to go to for rematch. They did the stadium in Melbourne last time and they got 57,000 fans. I don't know if they'll draw that much for a rematch because it felt like the first fight was a little bit bigger, but I mean, it's kind of hard to say right now. Everything overseas is, in flux. Who knows what the heck's going to happen. So, I mean, but obviously Whitaker and Adesanya is next. This version of Robert Whitaker we saw on Saturday night is, in my opinion, the best middleweight in the world, better than Adesanya. Adesanya's best striker by far in that division. But when you talk about well-rounded, Whitaker, he was doing his 1-2 head kick combos and then his takedowns against Gastelum, who's a really good wrestler. It was just, I mean, it was level. It's stuff we haven't seen out of Whitaker. I mean, that Whitaker was just absolutely incredible. Best, in my opinion, best all-around fighter, 185. And I think the rematch will be interesting. The first time they fought, I mean, Whitaker was coming off that hernia surgery that he had, and just maybe he wasn't 100%. And then he took time off, to spend with family. Maybe he wasn't 100% there physically and mentally, but I mean, he's looked fantastic. He looked fantastic against Darren Till, against Jared Kerr, and Kelvin Gastelum here. And you got to give props to Gastelum too. Took the fight on 3.5 weeks' notice. Having to go 5 rounds, and he was in the fight the entire time. It wasn't like blown out. So very, very good performance from Whitaker. And yeah, I mean, him and I think their second time around is going to be a lot better than the first.
I saw I think it was like a meme or a tweet about Gastelum saying that he's like the best inconsistent fighter, and I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. Like sometimes he just looks amazing, and sometimes he looks not, and sometimes he just looks like he's in the fight. Like he's had so many like fantastic wars, some like fantastic, amazing wins, and then he just like blows it. I don't know. Like I feel like he's very inconsistent, but I enjoy watching him fight. Like he went a complete war with Adesanya, and then like
it was so good.
Well, he like Hermanson like that's in like a minute. Like I don't know. I enjoy watching him, but I think he's kind of inconsistent, but he's good, but he's just kind of inconsistent.
Yeah, well, that fight with Adesanya that he had, that's like one of those fights that kind of just changes your life. How the kind of beating, you look at how how he wasn't the same after the second Robbie Lawler fight. So, I mean, Gastelum went through the same thing in that, and, he's only won one of his last 4 fights since that. I mean, so, maybe that fight took years off his career, but he still looked good Saturday, and, maybe give him somebody like Cannonier next, keep him at, fighting these top, 8 guys, and who knows? I mean, Kelvin's good enough to get back in the hunt. He's still only like 28 or something like that, so he's still got time to get back in the hunt.
The same age as John.
No, me, I'm 29.
Yeah, I pretty close, right? So 29 years old. So you were like 7. You were like 7 when Andrei Arlovsky debuted, and he fought in the co-main. Did you watch that fight?
I saw bits and pieces still. Like I was, I literally was like walking around.
Oh yeah,
I'm such a fan. I'm walking around with my phone just on, and then just for the people having conversation. So I couldn't say I was fully invested in everything that happened this past week, but
it was a bad show. Like, be honest. Like overall,
I just wanted to see. I really wanted to see the main event. I'm a big Whitaker fan. Andrei Arlovsky. When I started watching UFC around when most people started, right after the Ultimate Fighter, the first one. Andre Arlovski then was the man, and it's just crazy. He's still going, and it's like he's up and down a little bit, but it's like he's still beating people. Good fighter. It's so crazy to see him still doing this.
I honestly think he's a better fighter now than he was then. It's just the competition is so much better, so he's not like the best in the world, but he's actually a better fighter. He doesn't have the power he used to have, but he dictates the pace of the fight. He in this fight, I had no doubt he was going to win. He just looks, and his gas tank, he used to have problems with cardio and not anymore. He's just he's a complete fighter.
No, he looked great. I always still watch. I'm always so it's I like to balance stuff, but I'm it's hard to always with him. I think it's always very tough. You see that really good Arlovski that you've seen and then sometimes it's a little less, but I don't know. I like to watch him fight, and I'm always a big fan of his. But betting wise, he's one of the people I'm I have no idea with him.
Yeah, and his chin's been holding up a lot lately. That was one of the big knocks lately. I mean, everybody remembers the Fedor knockout, midair, and then when he had that war with Travis Brown, that was one of the all-time great one-round fights. That was just incredible, and just his chin's been holding up and facing a lot of these young guys with a lot of power, and they're not able to knock him out, and he's not going down as easily as he used to. So, yeah, it almost seems like when he went to American Top Team in Florida, that just kind of sparked a little bit of a resurgence. He's been up and down, wins some, loses some, but yeah, he's 42, been in the UFC for since 2000. And he doesn't look done yet.
No, he says he wants to go a couple more years.
Yeah,
that's what you don't see is when someone's chin seems to get better. That never happens. So with him, it's
yeah,
how are you taking the punches that he take years ago? It's a little weird.
Yeah. So if you anybody didn't see the rest of the show and you want to know what happened, just go to WrestlingObserver.com and read Ryan's recap, because the rest of the show was just a bunch of decisions, not much going on. There was a really nasty groin shot in the heavyweight fight, which is always fun. And they ended up having to stop the fight. And then they just had a really weird decision that came out of that. And there's some bad decisions on this card, which is getting to be an issue in UFC, but what can you do? So yeah, it was a show, as they say, but this coming week is the big one. So it's in John's neck of the woods. Although, are you I know you wrestle in Jacksonville, but are you actually there right now, or because you said you're not going to be around this weekend? So where's your home base?
No, I'm in Long Island.
Okay, Long Island. All right, so you got to go. So you're there for till the next tapings, probably, at least, or maybe longer.
Well, I'll be here for a little bit. I'm not going to be there obviously this week.
Yeah.
But I'll be there. I'll be back eventually. I'm trying to get everything right, now.
For sure. Congratulations, by the way. Your company had a real big rating this past week. You guys must all be happy, and you were on the show,
Yeah, I was on the show. So, it was definitely, I was very curious of how the ratings would do. And I really hope they stay around that, at least around here, or even, but I always I'm not the type of guy that's, screw NXT and screw WWE. I'm just I really hope, I'm the type of guy, I hope we all do very well. The more as well, including Impact and ROH and New Japan, the more everyone does well, the better everything is.
Absolutely.
So I'm for everyone. So but I'm happy that they left our night, because then that makes us do better in the ring. That makes TNT more happy with us, and that makes us hopefully go longer and get more money and do stuff. So I'm very thrilled with what just happened. So hopefully we just keep the ball rolling.
I compile the ratings data for the Observer and for Fight Game Media, and I don't know if you know this, because a lot of people don't. I compiled the segment by segment numbers, and when you looked at the top guys by segment in the last quarter, January to March, number 4 on the list, John Silver. You're viewed by more people than out of 92 guys. You are, and girls. You're number 4 out of 92. So congrats.
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
I'll take.
Yeah, you're behind Shaq.
Time for people to.
Yeah, you're behind Shaq and Jade, and yeah. So yeah, good job, man. Good job.
So after
time for people to.
Darby, I actually got a text message from Chris Jericho congratulating me on the ratings.
Nice.
And I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. And I saw a lot of stats about that. The match, I'm like, apparently, like the main event for some reason doesn't usually do as good as others, and we were the best that night. Yeah. So I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. So I'm happy that people want us to be wrestle.
Good job.
Yeah,
and
time for it's time for more people to learn the legend of Johnny Hungy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So this week we got UFC 261. So you're chilling back at home. I imagine you'll be buying the pay-per-view, like Ryan and I. And this is a big one. Fans back. We got the baddest man on the planet against Jorge Masvidal. I did that on purpose. But yeah, it's the big one. Are you you must be psyched for this one. I know you're a big MMA fan, John. I heard you on our mutual friend Promise Thomas's show a few months ago. And when I heard that and I heard your takes on MMA, I was like, I got to get that guy on the show. So I'm glad you came on, and I hope you're as pumped for this show as we are.
Oh, definitely. I'm definitely excited. I watch every U event for the most part, unless something just happens. But I watch my buddies from home, and me and my longtime friends are all huge UFC fans and MMA fans. So it's this one would be good. Three title fights is pretty cool. But I mean, I'm telling you, these 3 champions are top champions. This is going to be hard to. If I were to bet, be honest, I would bet they all retain. But it doesn't mean that's what I'm. Actually, yeah, I like all the champions. I like Rose a lot though. But we're gonna see it. The 3 champions right now, I think, are pretty dominant and legit badasses. So it's gonna be hard to really knock them off the top.
We did a thing at the beginning of the month where Ryan asked. Well, we both had to answer, but he asked me, are any of these guys going to lose their title, or any of these fighters going to lose their titles? And I called Jessica Andrade. And that's a kind of a bold call because Valentina's looked so good at flyweight. And I just thought, like, nobody's got the kind of power that Andrade has. So if she is able to nail her in the first round, then she might have a chance. But if it goes past the first round, I think Valentina retains. And Weili Zhang and Rose is going to be a war. That's going to be so much fun. And then the main event, like, I honestly think, like, the main event, I mean, I'm in there for the spectacle, but Usman's the best. Like, he might be the best fighter in all of UFC, like in pound for pound. So, Ryan, you still think what you thought at the beginning of the month, that you agree with John that they're all going to retain?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the crazy thing with the main event is, I mean, we saw last time, I think the fight's going to go pretty much the same, but it's kind of weird because last time Masvidal, he claims he had no training camp. He didn't have those like full blown training camps, but he was training. He was one of Dustin Poirier's main training partners, and Poirier fought a couple weeks in that fight. So he was, in some shape. He did have to cut 30 pounds from taking the fight on a week's notice. So I think that had a lot to do with his performance. So, and Masvidal seems like a guy who gets hyped by the fan, who kind of gets a little extra energy from the crowd. So maybe the crowd be, play in his favor. And Usman did just fight, 2 months ago. So I mean, that's a quick turnaround for him, but he's arguably the most well-rounded fighter, most complete fighter in MMA today. So I have a hard time seeing the fight going any different, barring Masvidal coming out and doing something crazy early on. but if it goes past the first round, it's going to be all Usman from there.
Yeah. And it's, and so we've got those main events. And I think probably the closest one in terms of betting is the strawweight fight, I think. John, you're into the DraftKings. I mean, that's probably your only one where you're going to get any kind of value is with Rose. I got to think Usman and Shevchenko are going to have pretty high price tags on DraftKings.
I'll be screwed on DraftKings. I mean, I wish I could be I'm in New York, obviously, so I can't just bet.
Yeah.
I wish my buddy has a house in Pennsylvania. So one time he was there, and I was betting like crazy. I was like, this person, and that's why. I mean, this is a random fighter that most people don't know. Dawkins is one of my huge favorites right now.
Chris or Kyle?
Chris is the heavyweight, right?
Chris the heavyweight.
Yeah.
Yes.
Chris, because I didn't know who he was. I just kind of researched. I thought he'd had a whole bunch of first round knockouts. I put $10 on him for a first round knockout. He won me $100.
Nice.
And I was like, yo, from now on, Dawkins is my guy, and I bet on him every fight, and he wins every time. I'm like, yo, always bet on freaking Dawkins. That's my guy.
So at the beginning of the year, Garrett, our founder of the site, he was asking Ryan and I to give him a couple of fighters to watch. And Chris Dawkins was the guy I picked. I said, keep your eye on Chris Dawkins. And he's fought twice since then, and he's won both times. So I looked like a genius. And for me, it was only the walkout music. He comes out to Fox on the Run by Sweet, which I just love that song. It's way before you were born, but that's my jam. And so he's so literally the only reason I picked him. Ryan does all the research, and this guy's done all this. I'm like, no, he's a heavyweight, and he comes out to Sweet. Can't go wrong with that.
Well, I mean, it works, right?
yeah, exactly. So that's awesome. I love those kind of stories. I had a parlay one time in Vegas at a show we were at. I picked 6 fights, and we're sitting, and I wasn't even at the show yet. We were having dinner, and I've got my tickets, and I'm watching on my phone like you were doing the other day. And the first 3 fights come through, and I'm like, hey, I'm halfway to this parlay. And then the 4th one comes through, and then I'm telling everyone at the table, and promise, Tom was there too. And he's like, he's bigger fan of it than I am. Then we're on our way to the event, and the 5th fight, I get that too. So I got one more fight to go, and it was a prelim. They were all prelim fights, none of the main card. So I got the 6th fight. I got it. I won the parlay. I run to the betting window to cash it in, reach into my pocket. It's gone. My ticket's gone. I have no idea what happened to my ticket. I had it at the restaurant. I had it in the car on the way to the arena. Somehow it fell out. So they pulled up the video and everything, and they found someone cashing it, but they had already cashed it, and they found it. So they couldn't do anything. If they had not cashed it yet, then they could have canceled the ticket, because they found the ticket of me buying it. They even had the computer and everything. So yeah, it was. Damn. Yeah, it sucks, but whatever. It's a nice story. It's $50, and I $50 parlay. I think I won $600. So it sucks, but what can you do? And $600 US. I'm from Canada. That's $1,000. So
that's well, it's not even you losing $600 is not as bad as you winning a ticket of you winning.
Yes.
$600. I'd rather just lose the money.
Yeah. I only lost $50. Really, when you think about it. So,
but I mean, that knowing that you should have, that you put that effort in to win that money, and then you don't have it. That's what I think.
I would have just blown it at the strip club anyway, so no big deal.
Well, that's
I once hit an 8-leg parlay at UFC 170, $200 bet. I think the payout was $3,500. So
yeah,
so it was just
Ryan's an expert.
Yeah.
He's the man.
Yeah.
we did our bets last year on the Fight Game Media Group, and he had a profit for the whole year on all his picks. So we're not doing so good this year, but we won't talk about that.
Not the thing where we depend when it's a big event, not for all the events, but the pay-per-view probably this weekend we'll do you put 20 in, and we all just pick who's gonna win through the prelims, early prelims and everything, and the person that gets the most right wins the whole pot.
Kind of like a Monday Night Football deal, or like the NFL pools.
Yeah, pretty much. But there's times where, like, because of the prelims, usually it's the prelims because we're not as familiar, so it's like I'll lose like a few in the prelims. I'm like, fuck, I'm screwed the entire time because I lost a few prelims. Because if we pick the same people on the main card, because the main card we usually all know at least the people, so we have similar picks. The prelims, do a little research, but you don't know them as much. But it makes the show a little more interesting. Like the units that we aren't as familiar with, it makes it more interesting to watch.
On Thursday, I'll send you the link to Ryan's preview. He has like an in-depth preview of all the fights, including the prelims, and that'll give you a heads up for your thing on the weekend.
There we go.
All right. So Ryan, on the rest of the card here, I mean, the main card, we've got, former champion, former title challenger, both rounding out the main card. And then we got some pretty good fights in the prelims too. What do people need to look out for on the rest of this card?
I mean, you got Uriah Hall against Long Island boy Chris Weidman. So, I mean, that's that's kind of a interesting for both because Hall is coming off the win over Anderson Silva. He's always been one of those guys that everybody expects to fight for a title, but he's never broken into that top tier. I mean, he's won 3 in a row, so this is probably the fight to get him in. And Weidman, it's his second time back down at 185, beat Omari Akhmedov in August. And just, he's living in North Carolina now, kind of training with Stephen Thompson more, his brother-in-law, and him and Anthony Smith, who's fighting Jimmy in the opening bout. They were training together. So Ray Longo did come down from Long Island and was with Chris for the last of his camp. So, Chris, he wants to fight for a title. He still thinks he can be a middleweight champion again, but this is his must win. I mean, I remember being 5 feet away whenever that Anderson Silva fight happened, and just everybody there on Media Row is just losing their minds, just because we couldn't what we saw, and it's just kind of crazy. Everybody expected him to be a long-time middleweight champion, and just it kind of hasn't gone that way, and he's hit a string of bad luck. So this is a pivotal fight for him. So that's a good one to look at. And then, Anthony Smith, Jimmy Crute. Crute looks like a big-time potential light heavyweight title challenger, and, fighting a former title challenger. This is, show whether or not he can break into that top tier light heavyweight of the light heavyweight division.
Yeah,
I'm a little biased because I'm a Long Island guy. So Chris Weidman's always been. I feel like the Long Island guys. I have to root for them. I'm a big fan of all of them. So Weidman. I feel like he's one of those guys. I think it's his skill level never dropped. Like, his skill level is still very high. The only thing I think he just got what I call Chuck Liddell disease, where his chin went. That's it. Like, a lot of these fights, he's doing fantastic. His chin is just not as good as it was. So he can't take the shots that he used to take. Especially like the fight with Jacare, like just beating his ass. He won round 1, 2, and was winning 3, and then just got knocked out. Yeah. But that's why, I mean, it's one of those things. He's rather gonna win or he's knocked out. It's one of those two. He's gonna win somehow or he's gonna get knocked out. He's not losing by decision. I don't think he's gonna get tapped out. He's rather gonna win somehow or he will get knocked out. So, I mean, I'm rooting for him, obviously.
Of course. Your whole crew, probably, right?
Yeah, I mean, I train. Right now with the shoulder, I'm not, but I train at a different camp in Long Island. But with Dennis Bermudez, he's there. I haven't really trained. I wouldn't say I trained with him, but I've seen him there. I've seen a lot of people. I can't pronounce her name. I'm dumb. Choke again. Did I say it right?
Oh, Catlin, the blonde fighter.
Yeah.
That's her nickname.
Is Ryan LaFleur is there too? I think. So.
Yeah. Ryan LaFleur. He's my trainer, my kickboxing trainer. So it's a really good camp there, and they're really cool, really friendly, and just a fun place to train. But yeah, I don't train like that's like it was either. I was trying to figure out the places to go, and I feel like for me, the LI Long Island MMA was the place to go. But those are the two places where people have really done stuff in MMA. Was the Sarah Longo camp or the Long Island MMA camp. As people, done some cool stuff there. But yeah, I still always gonna root for the Long Island guys. So hoping Wyman really gets his strategy down there, and Crute and Smith could be. I feel like that could be like a very, very entertaining fight, or I feel like it for some reason could be boring. But I'm hoping it's gonna be really entertaining. I think Crute's the big up and comer. Smith, Anthony Smith was some of his. He's kind of been up and down since he's had some huge wins, but I was so shocked when he got freaking destroyed by Glover. I was very shocked by that. I thought Anthony Smith was going to just run through Glover. Now I'm excited for the Glover and Jan fight. So that should be pretty cool too. Eventually happens, but I'm kind of up in the air with. I kind of would give it to. I mean, I would probably guess Crute, but that's one of those fights that could be. I think either way.
I think Smith will try to get it to the ground, and if he can, then he'll win, and if he can't, then Crute will knock him out. Is kind of how it'll probably go.
Crute's pretty on the ground too, so that will be
wins too. So he's not like a scrub on the ground. So it's not like just hey, this guy's a kickboxer, and he's not really a jiu-jitsu guy. He's good on the ground too. So I can see it. I think Crute's dangerous forever. That's why I give the edge to Crute.
Yeah,
it's two black belts. It's two jiu-jitsu black belts. So
really?
I mean, if it goes to the ground, we're probably going to see a little bit of wizardry down there from both.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he submitted Paul Craig. That's not easy to do. I was just looking at his record. Yeah, that's crazy. So yeah, and then the prelims themselves, like Randy Brown and Alex Oliveira. Brown's another Long Island guy, isn't he?
I'm not sure. Is he?
I don't know. I know he's from Jamaica, but I thought fought.
He's from Queens,
right?
Fights out of Queens, but I don't know if he's at like he's not one of the big camps. All
right.
Yeah, sometimes it's like they put Queens, even though Queens is like look at a map.
Yeah,
Queens is on Long Island, but it gets considered like New York City. That's like considered a different area for some reason.
Yeah, but other than that, like
the only time I've ever been in Queens was that old Shea Stadium back in the day.
Yeah.
I actually, the one time I went to New York, we actually booked a motel in Long Island, but it was like on the outskirts. So it was basically like right on the other side of the bridge, and it was scary. And we were there one night. We were booked for like 3 days, and we canceled, and we just went to Jersey. It was Secaucus. I was like, we'll just take a bus into the city. That was a lot easier. Like, those hotels are not in the best neighborhoods, but yeah, that's my one experience with New York City. I was just
New York. I would. There's a lot of bad spots in New York City. In the actual Long Island, there's really not a lot of spots here. You're going to be in a bad spot.
No, that's what I thought we were getting. I know what Long Island's like. I've heard it from people, and this was not what I was expecting it to be. This was New York City. So it was like right underneath a train track. It was pretty crazy. It's the rest of the card, like, I don't know, like I'm looking over this, and the only name I see that I'm really terribly interested in is Tristan Connolly, just because we hadn't seen him since he had that fight with Michelle Pahea, where Pahea was acting like an idiot and got beat. And he's from Canada too, so I have a rooting interest there. But any prospects or anything, Ryan, that people want to watch out for, or do we want to get into the questions?
There's real quick. There's a lot of Chinese fighters on early prelims. This was a show that was originally earmarked to be in Singapore, but they didn't come to the deal. But a lot of those, Zhurong is how you pronounce one of the name, and there's two others, but they have that new UFC Performance Institute there in Singapore, and all these Chinese fighters are coming out of there. And suppose word from people over there is that all these people that are coming out of that PI over there, they've been going through, camps and, like football style mini camps, stuff like they do, in NXT when they showed, them doing those like drill camps. But I mean, similar stuff, but all of them have, gotten high marks and of a lot of attention, to those specific three coming out of there. So that'll be interesting to see. China is a bit, big. The UFC wants to break in, and they need, stars outside of Wei Lee. So, and this is a good show to put them on because everybody's going to be watching Wei Lee over the. But other than that,
if Na Liang is anything like Xia Li, I'll be a big fan. I love watching her. She's a badass. It's awesome. Yeah. So you know what? Something you just talked about the training. Ryan and I did a little, pre-discussion, and one of his questions that he had for you was kind of related to that. So Ryan, why don't you go there now?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, how you train, there at Long Island MMA. How much of what you actually train when it comes to MMA do you incorporate into wrestling style?
A lot actually. So when I started training, I had to take a little bit of a break as a real life job for a while, and I just didn't have time to as much as I wanted to. But I started training in kickboxing and jiu-jitsu years ago, and that's when I incorporated. Like, I started doing kicks. I started doing more jiu-jitsu stuff when I was on the indies. So I think the first match I did it, the crowd was like in shock of how my kicks sound and how legit they sound. They almost felt I felt like they were watching, and they almost felt like just like in shock of how the kicks were, because I trained from kickboxing, and I was laying in like chest kicks, and making the noise that you normally hear. It was not me. I know people. I'm not slapping the leg. I'm not doing anything. I'm just kicking this guy in the chest, and it sounds like a freaking gunshot. And everyone was like, "Holy, what is this?" So that's when I really was like, "Okay, I'm gonna assess from now on." So right off the bat, I started using my kickboxing skills in the ring. Then it's when this is even before like the blood sport shows, whatever. I like for a while in the independents, I was doing a lot of match where at least I'd start off where it was very MMA based, where it wasn't just kind of like, your normal lock up, grab a headlock, grab a wrist lock, like it was more like how I would do if I was in a MMA fight. So it would be a lot of like, legit shot, legit holds I would go for if I was actually in a shoot fight. So I really just incorporated right away, right off the bat. And then everything I learned, I would literally just, once I learned something, I'd be like, okay, I could maybe use this in a pro wrestling match, or I could use this, or that'd be cool. I can use a sweep into that. Like, it makes sense to use. I mean, to use that stuff because it's the legit stuff. I like to incorporate that as much as possible. They'll keep it pro wrestling,
Yeah, for sure.
There's a reason. I mean, I don't want to say anything bad about any shows, but if I were to just do just MMA pro wrestling, that's not what I like, but I like to incorporate that into pro wrestling. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Like if I were to just do an MMA type pro, thing, I don't like that. I don't think that's entertaining for me. but I'd like it if it's pro wrestling, but incorporated is MMA.
Yeah, like a Kushida, like that sort of stuff when he was in Japan, like that sort of style.
Yeah, like more like it's got both. You can still if you're doing pro wrestling, you gotta do pro wrestling. You can't just almost that away. But I like to incorporate some stuff that's like, oh, that's that guy. Okay, that guy does that. Like that he was trained like he knows his stuff.
Absolutely. There's another question that was similar to Ryan's from one of our subscribers, Jeremy, and he just wanted to know if there's any specific combat fighters that you took inspiration or moves from in terms of your pro wrestling, either your persona or your technique.
Specifically, I can't talk. Not as much, but I have used the Daniel Cormier takedown on was it Josh Burnett, the big high crotch into the flip. I've done that definitely a bunch. I saw that. I'm like, that's
awesome.
So I've done that multiple times in a few matches. Specifically, it's hard to say, hey, because with MMA, it's a lot of the same stuff for the most part.
Yeah,
it's kicks, it's knees, but that Cormier takedown is you don't see that very often, so that's something to use definitely.
Cool. Okay, so another question we had from David. Well, he had two, but I think one's a joke. Because he followed up with a serious question. He said, but he says, what wrestler from another organization would you most like to wrestle, and why is it Daniel Bryan? But is there another answer you got?
I would say, Daniel Bryan is definitely up there, but Daniel Bryan and Cesaro, are the top two, I'd say.
Yeah, I want to see you. I want to see you with Ishii, but who doesn't?
With who?
Ishii. I think that would be awesome. Like from New Japan.
Oh
yeah.
That's someone people have been telling me about too. It's that's what they want to see. But I've watched obviously Daniel. I was like a guy that I only watched WWE growing up. I didn't watch cities. And then when I started doing the indies training, then I started to take started to watch a little bit more of that. And then Cesaro was someone that I had a lot. And then when I started training at Chikara, he was one of the trainers there. So
cool.
Yeah, so it was and he was just like the nice guy and just like insanely talented at everything he did. So he was someone I'm like, oh, I would love to wrestle him, but just never obviously got to happen. So I'd say those are the top two though. There's definitely more. I could name a shit ton of people, but
and that, you got so many guys now in AEW that you can have just different matches with, like, because there's so many different styles and sizes and looks, everything. Like, it's such a hodgepodge there, which is great.
So I've right now at AEW, the people that are probably definitely a possibility because they're in my company, but obviously never worked them is it's gonna be Chris Jericho and Christian. Those are definitely on top of my list right now. So hopefully one day I'll get to work with them.
So, and then his other question, which I think was his serious one, and this could be a tough one to answer, but if you don't want to answer it, that's fine. But he wanted to know, what's the biggest thing that you learned from working with Brodie Lee?
I feel like it's more of like him as like a person, like teaching us like life lessons of that sense, like not even wrestling lessons. He was just such a genuine and he really just like it's just it's like genuine of a good person he was. It made us like not even think about wrestling. It made us think about being a person and how I should act, not like acting in the ring, but like acting just as a person. Like he was just such a good guy. Very like I always say the one word is genuine. He's always genuine. He was just like so good in the ring. there was no like, besides him joking around, obviously, there was no ego, but he would joke about the ego. He would just be a dick sometimes, but joking around completely about it. And but it was just like, yeah, it was just how to be a positive person, and not just like he could separate himself. Like it didn't matter. Like even the people that were like extras, or the people that were, on just a per appearance deal, which were originally like, he treated everyone the same. He treated everyone, like he would just tell people. He would just go with people, talk to them that he didn't even know, and just kind of like help them out and give advice. And so I think if anything I learned from him was just a better person in real life.
Awesome. I before you got hooked up with the darker, I'm sure I'm like everybody else. Like I had no idea who you were. Like I don't watch a lot of indies. So, but when I started watching BTE, and I used to cry laughing at some of this stuff, like literally tears. And the stuff I remember was, when he would treat you like a little child. And the one scene I'll never forget, and I watched it like 100 times, was that one where I think it was Brodie sucks on the mirror, and then you had your hands were all red, and you're like, it wasn't me. And just like, it's like the little kid with the chocolate cookies, and he's like, I didn't eat them, crumbs coming out of his mouth and stuff. And then he would say like, oh, like, I have an 8-year-old and he's not a fucking idiot, you are. And all this, like, I just thought it was so funny. And one of our guys, Preet Paul, he didn't have a question for you, but he wanted just to let you know that his 13-year-old son watches BTE, and you crack him up, and he said he just loves that, and because of that, like, you're one of his favorites just because you put a smile on his face. So when you talk about like smiles on people's faces, like, that's legit, and you're actually doing that, so that's really cool. And then my actual question is related to that, and it was like, so a lot of the stuff that you guys do, and I'm not necessarily talking about the BTE stuff, because that I'm sure is just riffing and whatever, they just give you a camera and say, we're going to film you for 5 minutes and do whatever. But when you're on Dynamite, like, I can't imagine like that stuff you did last week, for instance, where, you were rehabbing the shoulder and you had all the guys and they're all like, and like, I can't imagine that stuff is scripted. So are they just telling you, okay, this is kind of your scenario and here's what you do? And then the follow-up to that is like, do you really have any idea where it's going? Or do you think that Tony just watches it and then tries to figure out what to do based on what you guys did? Or is he giving you a specific direction of, okay, I want you to do this because this is where it's going?
So even on like Dynamite, I just do what I want to do. It's not obviously it's not just like they just put a camera and say, hey, go. There's some kind of direction there, but it's not there. No one's ever told me what to say. No one's ever said, John, say these lines, and that will never happen. I don't think that will ever happen. And if it does, then that's when I stop being funny and people stop liking me.
Well, that's obvious, because there's no way you could script that stuff. Like it's obviously just you, and that's why it works.
Really, we just we all get together. We get in that room. We have our producer, Jess, who is the best. She says, hey, we need to talk about this. And then she's like, okay, whatever you just say, go. Usually when we might talk, maybe just the few of us, especially with Hangman, might talk a little bit and then be like, okay, this is what we could do. But a lot of times I'll literally just say, if we're talking, I'm just like, just film it and see what happens. Just whatever happens.
Yeah.
If it's funny, good. If it's funny and it's good, then let's use it. If not, we could always film it again. Or we could, a lot of times it's stuff that comes off the top of the head that picks. And if it's like, hey, this came off the top of the head, but the scene itself wasn't good. Okay, well, I could use that one because that really line I just randomly thought of that last take was really funny, or whatever it was. We can use that, but it's a lot of it's off the top of the head. A lot of it's just like us riffing. The last one we did was like Hangman was talking shoulder, and I was like, I think he was just not. He just like slightly touched my shoulder. I was like, oh, I started screaming, and then I'm like, oh, when we actually film it, let's do that, and that's that's my good shoulder, but I'll just I don't know, like it. It's just how we work. We need to just kind of do it and see what happens, and then we can always retake it if we need to.
Yeah. But a lot of it reminds me of just like you just get a group of 8 friends around and just throw a camera and hit record and just let them do whatever, and it's just that's kind of feels like a lot of the time. So, and I think that's better for the viewing audience because you're seeing real personalities like yours and everyone else's coming to life, and it's not just some like scripted forced thing. This feels more real as opposed to reading lines off of papers. So I think that's a good thing that works in y'all's advantage that way.
That's the thing with the Dark Order, though, is that we're off. So it's and I hate to say, it's almost like there really is no acting. It's just kind of like us around. Like our characters aren't real characters, just us hanging out. Maybe a little exaggerated versions of us, if that.
I would hope so.
But it's like, but it's like we really all make fun of Five all the time. Yeah. It's like we all like Stu and Uno are really like that. Like Alex is really like, we're all really like how we are. It's just like
you guys are all a little too much into each other's cocks, but
well, that's how it is in real life. So no, but to joke around, and that's how we joke around, and then we just film it, and then it works. So.
So the last question that we had from our group is another one from Jeremy, and I really like this question. He's like, first of all, he wanted to congratulate you on your success, and he says, in the journey you've had, was it harder to stay mentally and physically focused when you were coming up, or is it harder now that you're in a major company and trying to work your way up? Which was harder, or maybe compare the two?
I probably would say I think they're both really hard, actually. I get in spurts where I'm doing I feel like for a while, especially like right when we started to really take off with BT, like it was very because I was literally I had nothing. I was just kind of just fucking around on TV or on BT. But I'd say coming up was harder because it's definitely harder coming up when you're broke. You're noticing everyone's getting signed and you haven't been signed yet. When all these people, like you are on TV and you're like, damn, I'm better than these people. So it's like mentally draining that, like, why am I not getting booked? Why am I not getting signed? Why am I not getting the opportunities? So like, I think that was more of you to like, I think I was like more like, that was more depressing back then, really. Cause you didn't even have like, now it's like, it's hard to be depressed when at least you're on TV every week and you're getting paid good. Back then it's like, oh, I'm not getting paid. I don't have good money. Everyone's getting signed. Everyone's having good, breaks, and I'm not doing any of that. Yeah. So coming up is definitely harder. You have to push through that because there's definitely been times where I was thinking like, maybe I shouldn't be a wrestler. Maybe I should focus on something else. Like I know I have a lot of like, obviously with comedy, I'm like, maybe I should just get into acting. Maybe I should just put my focus into, a different thing. Like I don't have to wrestler. Maybe I could wrestle every once in a while, but maybe I could go to acting school. I could on the weekends try to get gigs and like that. Try to do whatever. But so I think that's a little more like mentally draining than anything. But this is still right now. It's still tough because you don't want to get stale. You don't want to get
complacent.
You don't want not care anymore. You don't want to like, you started here, and then all of a sudden you don't want to go dropping. So it's never going to be easy. Even when you're like guy. Even when you're this and when you're that, you still have to. You don't want to drop. So it's always going to be tough. But I think at least you're signed and you're still getting a good paycheck. So at least there's that.
Did you see the Jericho interview that he did with Stone Cold on the network or Peacock or whatever it is?
I haven't because I don't have Peacock. I wish
okay.
they didn't do that.
The reason I ask is Jericho talked about something, and I thought of you when he talked about it, and he said when he was coming up in WCW, and he said whether they gave him 30 seconds or a minute or 2 minutes, whatever time they gave him, that was his time. And he was going to make the most that he could of that time and get over as best he could, regardless of what they were telling him. So to me, I thought of you when you did that, because you were just getting like little bits and pieces here with the Dark Order and BTE and stuff, and you got yourself over. And then Tony noticed it, and he noticed your personality. And then, like he's talked about in interviews before, he's brought you up and said, like, I called him into the office and he thought he was in trouble. And then, he's like, give you the riot act. And then he's like, why aren't you like that on TV? And then it was like, after that is kind of, you took off. And, so I thought of you when Jericho was talking about himself. So, I think you've done really well there, and hopefully, the injury, bit of a shot in the arm, whatever, but so to speak, but hopefully you come back, you'll be better than ever. Hopefully, Double or Nothing, seems about the time frame that maybe we might see in the ring again, I hope. And really looking forward to that. Yeah, I
hope so. I want to make sure I'm 100% though.
Yeah.
I definitely, but especially with a shoulder is such a is most it's a weird your body really. So there's a lot of I want to make sure I'm shoulder pressing some significant weight before I get in the ring. I don't want to make sure I'm like, oh, I can move it, so I'm good. Make sure I'm lifting heavy. I'm very supportive. But like you just said with the with Tony, that's like I don't want to talk bad about any other places, but he even told me he didn't like me at first. He didn't want me to be on TV. Not that he didn't want me on TV, he just didn't want me to be a featured thing. Because he just didn't see it. Because it was like a weird thing. It was like I was put into the Dark Order. The Dark Order is like, evil heel cult. So my at least my grain of thought was, okay, like fucking zombie face, like,
you're like a minion.
Like if I think of a cult guy, I think of their brainwash. So I'm trying to look like I'm a brush, like angry guy. So that's what I did. But I guess that's not what he really wanted. So eventually when I started to do my thing on BTE, that's when he's like, oh, you do have personality. You're not just, a freaking no personality guy. And he thought I had no personality. He thought I had nothing to me besides just wrestling. So that's why, I guess you never know, like how, that's how I just thought I should have acted, because the character I was given. But, once I showed personality, he's the type that's not going to be like, well, I said I didn't like him, so he's going to get screwed. Like, he's like, no, let's fucking put you on TV more. Let's get a camera for him. Oh, okay, you don't have a match to speak? Oh, but let's have you talk somewhere. Let's have you do this. And he's always thinking of ways to make us do stuff now. Where, back then there was like, he would have to get the Young Bucks would be like, hey, you should give those guys a chance. He's like, nah, I don't see it in them. But now it's completely different. Now it's like we're trying to find ways to get me on TV, even though I can't even wrestle a bad show. So, and he told me that, and he's like, that's a good quality to have, is to say, hey. He told me, he's like, hey, I was wrong about you. I thought you didn't have anything to you, but now I see you're actually, you're legit. We're gonna have to get you a lot of TV time. So, that's really cool to have a boss like that.
Yeah, it's credit to him to admit that he was wrong and then fix it, whereas other people would have just had their mind made up, and it doesn't matter how good you are. It's like, no, you're Cesaro, you're Zack Ryder, but no, like, you're John Silver, and I'm going to make you a star, or you're going to make yourself a star, is basically what he told you, which is cool. So that's that. So that's all the questions. And then, like, the only other stuff we really got for today, and we're almost at about our hour. So we just want to quickly run over. This is an MMA show, so we talked everything about UFC, but we've got some Bellator and PFL. PFL is debuting this week. Filthy Tom Lawler's fighting in PFL in a couple weeks, and we're supposed to have him on as a guest next week. So hopefully that's going to come through. Yeah. That's another one that I'd like to see you guys hook it up at some point.
Beyond wrestling already.
Oh, have you done that? Yeah.
Yeah, it was actually really good.
I'll have to check that
good.
out.
We wrestled in Massachusetts. Had a really good match. I remember him being really excited after. He was like, "We put her up." That's it, because that's how we wrestle. I hit hard. He hits hard. We like to wrestle with. We trade submissions, and we had a good match. And after, I remember him being really excited and really pumped. Like he was like, I think he started yelling, like, in a good way.
Yeah.
But he was like,
well, he's young in ring years. Like, he's older than you, but he's probably wrestled less, so he's kind of younger than he looks. Yeah, or looks younger than he is what I meant to say.
I really enjoyed it. I would definitely do it again. And I like Tom. Tom's great, and we had a good match. It was fun.
Yeah, he's wrestling for the NJPW Strong title this coming weekend. So I don't even want to ask him if he won. I'll find out. So Ryan, what do we got to look forward to this week from Bellator and PFL?
No Bellator show this week. So
okay.
They're off until May 7th. So yeah, but PFL, their first event this week. Anthony Pettis and Clay Collard in the main event. You got Marcin Held against Nathan Schultz. You also have Lance Palmer against Bubba Jenkins on the main card. Got some good prelims with Brendan Loughnane. I think Chris Wade, another Long Island MMA guy, is fighting this week. So,
and you can get that on ESPN Plus.
Yeah, you can get the prelims on ESPN Plus and the main card on ESPN2. So there's
that's Thursday night, John. If you're not doing anything, you can watch. Check that out.
Then of course, Wednesday night after Dynamite, the one on TNT with one of my personal favorite fighters to watch, just because he's one of the most violent fighters in MMA, John Lineker. Is back. I think it's his one debut or second fight in one, and he's always somebody who's just fun to watch because he's just gonna bring it balls to the wall, as they say. So got that on top of the UFC this week. So yeah, some good stuff this week.
All right, and then real quick, Ryan, for whatever it's worth, and our best bets did pretty good last week. We both won, so we do a best bet every week, John, where we look at the card and we pick which fighters we think are most likely to win. So based on the betting odds, like, what's the best bet? So I'm going to just go with my original pick that I did earlier in the month, even though I'm kind of starting to talk myself out of it, and go with Jessica Andrade, because I like the odds in that fight, even though if it was straight money, I'd be betting on Valentina, but it looks like it's plus 300 right now for Andrade. So I think she's got a better than 3-1 chance of winning. So that's why I'll go with her. But I'm also down $1,500 on the year. So don't listen to me. And that's not real money. It's, it's play money, but we bet $100 on 5 fights every card, and I'm down $1,500. Ryan is even on the year pretty much. So Ryan, what's your best bet?
I'm going to go with Wei Lee. I think, even though she hasn't fought since March last year, just it's about Rose's style. It just fits right into Wei Lee's style, just the stand and trade. I really think that has the potential to be one of the fights of the year, and last time we saw Wei Lee Zhang, she was in, the best women's fight you'll probably ever see at least in our lifetimes. So, that's really the fight I'm looking forward to the most. But I think Wei Lee's going to when that one just hurt. Rose has that great striking, but something about Wei Lee's style just kind of fits perfectly into that. I mean, and Wei Lee's won 21 fights in a row. I mean, it's kind of hard against that. So
yeah.
So you know,
and John,
and she's at good value right now at -200. So
yeah, I like those. I like those
right
odds.
now. Yeah, I think it'll go. Her odds will probably go higher as the week goes on. So,
and John, safe to say you're taking Chris Weidman?
Well, are you doing the betting odds? What's the betting odds on Weidman?
That one's a pick'em.
So
minus
-110 right now.
Yeah,
I'm going to be a underdog because of it hasn't been great lately. But if I had to pick one, like, hey, I think this person is definitely going to win, or versus, betting on, you know what, just me being me, I'm going to pick Chris Weidman just because that's what I want to see. I want him to see him win. Doesn't mean I think that's the week or anything, but
that's kind of what our best bet is. It's just the one fighter we think is going to win on the card. So
I'm going to say Valentina would be my lock of the week.
There you go. Yeah,
I just think. I mean, I think Valentina is. I think she's got everything, and if Rose barely beat Andrade, but she beat Andrade. I mean, the second time at least, when she didn't get slammed in her freaking head. I think Valentina beats Rose, so I'm gonna go over Andrade. I think if Andrade wins, it's something crazy like a slam or something like. I don't think it's like her just beating her and striking. I think she's got the best fighter IQ out of everyone. I think she might have a better fighter IQ than like Nunes. Like I think she just knows everything so well, Valentina. So I think she'll beat Andrade.
All right, cool. And we got one more thing before we go. I promised to give away, so we're going to give away 2 shirts from Pro Wrestling Tees of John Silver. So listeners, we're going to have one for any new subscriber this week, starting today for the next 7 days. You'll automatically be entered into the draw. And then for regular listeners, I'm going to keyword, and I'm going to ask John to come up with a keyword or phrase. It's up to you, whatever you want. So they have to be listening in order to win. And then they're going to pick a shirt. I'll buy the shirt. You'll get some merch money. They'll get a nice Johnny Hungy shirt or whatever you got over there. So what's your phrase?
Wait, so how does this work? I pick
whatever you come up with. They have to tell me what it was.
But
okay. So they have to hear this.
Yes.
Then they have to.
Yeah.
Phrase. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna go with Big Buff Johnny Hungy.
I got to write that down. Okay. Big Boss Johnny Hungy. So you can send a DM to me, Paul Ace Fontaine on Twitter, or Ryan J. Frederick at Ryan J. Frederick. And if you forget that, you can just watch UFC and you'll see his tweets on the screen 15 times on the show. Or you can send me a Facebook message, DM. So John, I want to thank you a lot for doing this. This was a lot of fun. Hopefully we can do it again sometime.
Yes, thank you very much.
When fans are back, we do our group thing. We always get together and we go to Double or Nothing. So when we're in Las Vegas next year for Double or Nothing, I owe you a drink or maybe 2, and I'll find you. We'll get you whatever. We'll hook you up with whatever. And I want to thank you a lot for doing this. So heal up. We'll look forward to seeing you on AEW Dynamite soon. This show is normally on the Patreon for subscribers only, but Garrett said he's going to wait a couple days and put it on free for YouTube. So when that happens, I'll send you the link. You can tweet it out. Hopefully a lot of people get to see. There's a lot more people than normal get to see this interview, but thanks a lot, John. Best of luck.
Yes. And thank you very much, John.
Have me on. I like talking UFC and stuff, so I enjoy it.
I had 3 guests in mind when we started this show, and you were one of them because I just heard you on Thomas's show, and the other one we got was Tom, like promise, and the other one is Filthy, and we're hopefully having him next week. So I'll get the trifecta, and then I got to set my goals. Although, So anyways, So until next time, I'm Paul Ace Fontaine, Ryan J. Frederick, at John Silver 1. Oh, Johnny Hungy.
Silver number 1.
Silver number 1 on Twitter with the blue check mark. Nice.
Fine.
Yeah.
Freaking fun.
Even Dave Meltzer can't get that. All right. So Ryan, you always sign us off. Why don't you sign us off?
All right, everybody. Enjoy the fights this week. Have a good week.